There comes a sacred moment in every soul's journey when the universe whispers, "You've passed the test." It doesn't come with fireworks or applause. It comes with stillness, with inner knowing. And if you're hearing this message, then you are not here by accident. You are the 1%, the chosen, the ones who didn't break when life tried to crush them. Now God's saying it's time to exit. From the very beginning, something about you has been different. You may have sensed it as a child when the world around you seemed louder, harsher, or more confusing than it did to others. You may have noticed that while others were quick to conform, quick to compromise who they were just to be accepted, something deep within you whispered, "No, that's not your path." It was never your job to blend in. You came here to rise. Trying to fit in was like trying to wear someone else's skin. It never felt quite right. You dimmed your light at times, hoping to be more palatable, hoping to avoid judgment. You pretended to laugh when it wasn't funny, agreed when you felt resistance in your heart, and said yes when your soul screamed no. And yet, no matter how much you tried, the ache of inauthenticity always returned, because your soul was not wired for imitation. It was wired for transformation. Every time you were rejected, overlooked, or misunderstood, you took it personally. You thought something was wrong with you. But nothing was wrong with you. In fact, everything about you was divinely aligned. The reason you didn't fit in is because you weren't meant to replicate the patterns of the world. You were sent here to disrupt them. You are the exception. You are the shift. You are the evolution. You were designed to break through barriers, not just the ones the world built around you, but also the ones you unknowingly built within yourself. The beliefs that said you're not good enough, not smart enough, not deserving enough. Those are the illusions you came here to dismantle. Your healing is not just about you. When you rise, you lift others. When you live in truth, you give others permission to do the same. It's okay if your path has felt lonely at times. The chosen path often is. When you're chosen, you're called to walk ahead of the crowd, not with it. You feel things deeply. You see through illusions quickly. You question things others accept blindly. And because of that, people may call you strange, difficult, intense, or too much. But that's not your burden. It's your power. That depth, that sensitivity, that intuition, it's not a weakness. It's your divine compass. You were never meant to hide. You were meant to lead. Not by force, not with arrogance, but by embodying authenticity so powerfully that others are inspired to awaken their own truth. Your breakthrough is not just about success or recognition. It's about liberation. It's about remembering who you were before the world tried to define you. It's about shedding the masks, the roles, the expectations, and coming home to your soul. Your path is not linear, and it was never supposed to be. The setbacks, the heartbreaks, the detours, they weren't detours at all. They were divine redirections. They were necessary cracks in your foundation so your truth could emerge. Every challenge was carving you, shaping you, refining you. Don't worry about the ones who don't understand you. Don't waste your light trying to prove your worth to those who can't see it. Your energy is too sacred to be spent chasing validation. Let them go with love. The ones who are meant for you will never require you to shrink. They will see you and feel like they've finally found home. The world doesn't need more people trying to fit in. It needs bold souls willing to stand out. It needs hearts that are open, minds that are free, and spirits that refuse to settle. You are here to be that light. You are here to disrupt the narrative. You are here to create a new reality, not just for yourself, but for generations to come. So if you've ever felt too different, too broken, too sensitive, too weird, rejoice, because those were never flaws. They were the sacred clues that you were meant for something greater. And now your time has come. Not to ask for permission, not to wait for the right moment, but to break through boldly, unapologetically, and divinely. This is your calling. This is your reminder. You were never meant to fit in. You were meant to break through. And now, beloved soul, the world is finally ready for what you've always been becoming. Step forward, shine brighter. You are exactly who you were always meant to be. And there was a time when the weight of your past felt too heavy to carry, when the memories lingered like shadows and the wounds seemed to define your every step. But look at you now. You've walked through storms that were meant to break you, and instead they built a strength within you that no one can take away. That pain wasn't random. It came with purpose, with divine intention, not to destroy you, but to awaken something deeper within you. At the time, you didn't know why it had to hurt so much. You didn't know why the people you loved turned cold, or why the doors you prayed to open slammed shut in your face. You begged for answers. You pleaded for relief. But the silence wasn't neglect. It was grace. It was life allowing you to become. Pain was your teacher. And though it wasn't gentle, it was honest. It stripped away everything that wasn't truly you. It exposed the parts of you that were still seeking validation, still begging for love, still holding on to what was already gone. And as painful as it was, it showed you what needed to be healed. You see, pain has a way of introducing you to your power. It forces you inward, where the real answers live. When people disappointed you, you learned how to meet your own needs. When they walked away, you discovered how to stand alone. When your heart shattered, you picked up the pieces, not to become who you once were, but to become someone wiser, softer, and more whole. And now, that old pain no longer fits who you are. You've outgrown the story where you were the victim. You've outgrown the identity that was built on suffering. Yes, those experiences shaped you, but they do not define you. They were chapters, not your whole book. There's a quiet knowing in your soul now, a calm awareness that doesn't seek revenge, doesn't demand closure, and doesn't need to be understood. You've stopped bleeding for people who wouldn't have bandaged your wounds. You've stopped watering gardens that never wanted to grow with you. That is growth. That is healing. That is your power. You don't cry over the same things anymore. You don't lose yourself in the same storms. The triggers that once shook you have lost their grip. That's not because you've hardened. It's because you've healed. You learned that peace isn't found in avoiding pain, but in facing it, feeling it, and then releasing it with love. And maybe they never apologized. Maybe they never saw the damage they caused. But you chose to free yourself anyway. You chose to stop carrying their mistakes like they were your identity. You stopped letting what broke you be the loudest voice in your mind. That takes courage. That takes divine faith. You've outgrown the need to explain yourself. You've outgrown the urge to go back and fix what was never yours to fix. Some people couldn't meet you where you were because they were never meant to walk your path. Some losses were actually protection. Some endings were disguised beginnings. Now there's space inside of you where pain used to live. That space is not empty. It's filled with wisdom, clarity, and self-respect. You speak to yourself differently. You move through life with more grace. You know when to stay, when to walk away, and when to simply let go. That's not bitterness. It's self-love. So no, you're not broken. You're seasoned. You've been refined by fire, not destroyed by it. You've learned to rise without drama, to love without losing yourself, and to give without draining your soul. You are no longer chasing healing, you are the healed. Look how far you've come. There was a time when you thought you wouldn't survive, but here you are, breathing deeper, laughing louder, trusting life again. You are not who you were a year ago, a month ago, or even yesterday. You are becoming. And now that pain, once your prison, has become your platform. You carry it not as a burden, but as a reminder of how far you've traveled. It no longer controls you. It simply reminds you that you're powerful enough to overcome anything. You've outgrown the pain. You don't need it to validate your growth anymore. You don't need the struggle to feel worthy. You're not surviving, you're thriving. And from here forward, everything you build will come from a place of truth, wholeness, and joy. You may not understand it when it happens. In fact, it often begins with confusion, discomfort, or even heartbreak. Doors start closing that you thought would always be open. People you once trusted begin to drift away or turn against you. Situations you tried to hold together begin to unravel, no matter how hard you pray, no matter how tightly you cling. It feels like loss, but it's not loss. It's preparation. God doesn't remove things from your life to punish you. He removes them because you've outgrown them. That job, that relationship, that environment, it served a purpose. It was a classroom. But now the lesson is over. You've passed the test, and it's time to rise. You may have loved it. You may have built your identity around it, but God sees what you cannot. He sees the mountain while you're still staring at the valley. He knows the next level even when you feel stuck at the current one. And so he whispers, exit, not in anger, not in fear, but in love. Sometimes the exit is loud, a breakup, a betrayal, a layoff. Other times it's subtle, just a quiet nudge in your spirit telling you this is no longer for you. That gentle unease you feel isn't random. It's divine direction. It's God saying, you've stayed here long enough. You were never meant to stay in one place forever. You were made to evolve, to stretch, to expand into all that you were created to be. And elevation always requires separation. Just as a seed must break through the soil, you must break through old limitations. But the breaking is not the end, it's the beginning. When God says exit, he's calling you out of survival and into purpose. He's calling you out of comfort and into greatness. But first, you must trust the process. You must be willing to walk away from what is familiar in order to step into what is destined. It may feel lonely at first. It may feel like you're walking through a wilderness with no map. But God doesn't lead you out to leave you empty. He leads you out to lead you higher. He didn't bring you this far to abandon you. That door that closed behind you, it's sealed because what's coming next needs all of you, not the version of you who was still trying to fit into places you've outgrown. Letting go isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It takes strength to walk away without closure, to leave without resentment, to trust without seeing. But when you exit with grace, you make room for divine elevation. You open the door to peace, abundance, alignment, and joy. The kind of joy that doesn't require performance or approval. The kind of joy that comes from living in truth. The next level of your life will not look like the last. And that's the point. Growth always demands a new version of you. You can't carry old mindsets into a new season. You can't drag expired relationships into your purpose. What's behind you was necessary, but it's not permanent. Stop trying to reopen doors God has locked for your protection. And if you're still wondering, why did this happen to me? Maybe ask instead, what is this trying to teach me? Because every exit contains revelation. Every ending is an invitation to deeper trust, greater clarity, and renewed faith. You're not being rejected, you're being redirected. You're not falling apart, you're being rebuilt. So breathe, stand tall, and walk forward, not with fear, but with expectation. The exit is not your downfall, it's your breakthrough. This is the shedding before the rising. This is the release before the reward. Trust that what God is removing is only clearing the space for what He's about to pour in. You're on the verge of something new, something bigger, something sacred. He's not just calling you out, He's calling you up. And when God says exit, it's because elevation is already in motion. There were moments when you could have reacted and no one would have blamed you. Moments when words burned on your tongue, ready to defend, to explain, to justify, to prove yourself right. But you chose restraint. You chose peace over pride. Not because you were weak, but because you were wise. You understood that not everything deserves your energy, not every attack needs a response, and not every battle is yours to fight. It requires strength and power and truth. It is not emptiness. You knew deep down that reacting would only pull you into chaos, into someone else's storm, so you stood firm, calm, and unshaken. You allowed your silence to speak for you because you understood something sacred. Silence is not emptiness. It is full of presence, power, and truth. It is not retreat. It is control. People mistook your quiet for passivity. They thought your silence meant you didn't care or that you were afraid. But the truth is your silence was a boundary, a line they could not cross. It was your way of saying, I do not owe you my voice. I do not owe you my pain. I do not owe you a seat at the table of my healing. That silence was a shield. It protected your peace. It preserved your energy. It gave you space to reflect and to rise. You didn't chase closure. You didn't beg to be understood. You didn't lower yourself to be heard by those who were committed to misunderstanding you, and in that silence, you grew. You started listening not to the noise outside of you, but to the whisper within you. The voice that said, you don't have to explain yourself. You don't have to prove your worth. You are allowed to walk away in silence and still be complete. There's a certain dignity that comes with silence. It allows you to detach from drama without ever picking a side. It keeps you rooted when the world is spinning. While others were performing, reacting, and lashing out, you stayed grounded. Not because you didn't feel, but because you refused to be controlled by those feelings. That is real power. The ones who sought to provoke you learned that they could not shake you. The ones who left expected a reaction, but received stillness. That was your power. You robbed them of control. You took back the pen and stopped allowing others to write your story with their noise. You stepped back, not to run away, but to rise above. You rose so high they could no longer reach you. And look at what your silence gave birth to. Clarity, healing, direction, growth. It allowed you to see who really had your back and who only came close to drain you. It exposed what needed to end, what needed to be released, and what was ready to be transformed. Silence was your mirror. It showed you the truth without distortion. While others drowned in distractions, you discovered the power of reflection. While they craved attention, you cultivated intention. And in that sacred space of stillness, you remembered who you are. You remembered that peace is not something you find in the world, it's something you carry inside you. Now you move differently. You speak with purpose, not from pain. You act with wisdom, not with impulse. You know how to protect your energy like it's sacred, because it is. And you're no longer triggered by things that once consumed you. That is evidence of transformation. That is the reward of silence. You no longer explain your choices to those who never cared to understand you in the first place. You no longer waste time proving your value to people who were blind to it. You realize now that your worth isn't found in noise. It's rooted in your essence. And your essence doesn't need to be shouted. It simply is. There is a time to speak. And when you do, your words will carry weight, not because they are loud, but because they are true. But until then, you let your peace do the talking. You let your growth speak for itself. You let your silence echo louder than chaos ever could. Because your silence wasn't weakness, it was wisdom. It was alignment with your higher self. It was your quiet revolution, and it was the most powerful thing you ever did. You may not always feel like it. Life can sometimes cloud your radiance with heartache, betrayal, confusion, and pain. There are moments when the weight of the world seems to press down so heavily that you forget who you are. You begin to believe that your voice doesn't matter, that your presence doesn't change much, that your efforts go unseen. But even in those moments of doubt, your light remains. It may flicker, but it never dies. The truth is, you were never meant to blend into the darkness. You were created to shine. You were born with a light so unique, so sacred, that the world desperately needs it, especially now. It doesn't matter how quiet you've been or how hidden you've felt. The light in you is not diminished by circumstances. It is revealed through them. The world we live in can feel cold, chaotic, and disconnected. People are hurting. Hearts are heavy. Many are searching for something real, something healing, something hopeful. And that's where you come in. You carry a presence that brings calm into storms, a kindness that softens even the hardest hearts, a wisdom that doesn't need to be shouted to be powerful. You may not have realized it, but every time you chose compassion over judgment, you shone. Every time you forgave when you had every reason not to, you lit up the space around you. Every time you offered a smile, a kind word, a listening ear, you became a beacon in someone else's darkness. You didn't need a spotlight. You didn't need to be famous. Your light has always done the quiet work of healing. Being the light doesn't mean being perfect. It doesn't mean always having the answers. It means choosing love over fear. It means showing up with honesty and grace. It means being a safe space when the world feels unsafe. And sometimes being the light means simply choosing not to dim yourself to make others comfortable, choosing to rise again even after being broken. You are the light when you stay soft in a world that tells you to harden. You are the light when you believe in hope even when your own heart has been shattered. You are the light when you choose truth over silence, even if your voice shakes. Your light doesn't come from what you do. It comes from who you are. Even if no one acknowledges it, even if your kindness goes unnoticed, it still matters. The sun doesn't wait for applause to rise, it just shines. And that is your calling too, not to force the world to notice you, but to keep showing up in love and authenticity. You never know whose life you're touching. You never know who's drawing strength from your presence, even from afar. When you walk into a room, things shift, not because you demand attention, but because you carry peace. You carry depth. You carry a light that others recognize, even if they can't explain it. Some people are drawn to you without knowing why. It's not about your words. It's your energy, your spirit, your intention. And yes, there are times when your light will make others uncomfortable. Not everyone is ready to see clearly. Some are still attached to their shadows, but that doesn't mean you should shrink. You don't serve anyone by playing small. Let your light be a reminder that healing is possible, that goodness still exists, that love is still the answer. The world doesn't need more noise, it needs more light bearers. People like you who know what it feels like to walk through the darkness and still choose to shine. People who've been hurt but still choose to be gentle. People who carry scars but still choose to believe in beauty. So if you ever wonder whether you're making a difference, remember this. Every act of kindness you've done, every word of encouragement you've offered, every time you chose love over fear, you've been lighting up the world more than you know. Keep glowing even when it feels unnoticed. Keep loving even when it feels unreciprocated. Keep rising even when it feels hard. Your light is your gift, and no amount of darkness can ever extinguish what was divinely placed within you. You are not here by accident. You are here to remind the world what light feels like. And your light, just as it is enough. You may have felt the sting of letting go, the ache of walking away from something or someone that once felt like everything. Maybe you wrestled with guilt, confusion, or grief. Maybe the decision wasn't even yours. Life closed a door before you were ready. And in that moment, it felt like loss. It felt like failure. It felt like an end. But what you couldn't see then, what you are only beginning to understand now, is that the exit was never meant to break you. It was meant to release you. What looked like a collapse was actually a divine course correction. What felt like a rejection was a redirection. You weren't being punished, you were being prepared. You were being pulled out of the familiar so you could grow into something far greater than you ever imagined. Because freedom rarely comes in comfort. It often begins with disruption. True freedom is not about staying where you've always been. It's about choosing alignment over attachment. It's about hearing the quiet call of your soul and being brave enough to answer it, even when it leads you away from everything you once knew. Some exits are loud, dramatic, and painful. Others are quiet, slow, and full of unseen tears. But every exit that is guided by truth, even when it hurts, is a doorway into deeper peace. It is the soul saying, I've learned what I needed here. I've outgrown this chapter. It's time to move on. And honoring that truth is one of the most courageous things you can do. You were not meant to stay stuck in places that diminish your light. You were not meant to carry relationships that drain your spirit. You were not meant to tolerate patterns that keep you small. The discomfort you felt wasn't a sign to fight harder. It was a sign to free yourself. And when you chose to exit, whether it was a job, a friendship, a relationship, or a mindset, you chose yourself. You chose healing. You chose growth. You chose to believe that there was something better on the other side of pain. That's not giving up, that's rising up. Freedom comes in many forms. Sometimes it looks like speaking your truth. Sometimes it's setting a boundary, saying no, or refusing to be who others expect you to be. Sometimes it means walking away from something good because deep down, you know it's not great. And sometimes it means trusting the silence that follows the exit, even when you don't know what's next. But here's what you must remember. The exit was never the end of your story. It was the beginning of a new one. One where you are no longer pretending. One where you are no longer shrinking. One where your soul breathes freely, your voice rises clearly, and your life begins to reflect who you truly are. Yes, it can be scary. Yes, you'll miss parts of what you left behind, but you'll also feel something you haven't felt in a long time: peace, space, possibility. You'll begin to realize that you were never trapped by your circumstances, only by the belief that you couldn't leave them. And now that you've exited, you're free to build a life rooted in authenticity, not obligation. You don't owe anyone an explanation for choosing your peace. You don't have to justify why you stopped watering dead plants. Your healing does not require permission, and your freedom is not up for negotiation. You were not created to be caged by fear, guilt, or tradition. You were created to live fully, freely, and joyfully. So let the exit be what it is: a sacred turning point, a doorway into expansion, a divine invitation to reclaim your power and step into your truth. You are not behind. You are not lost. You are simply becoming. The life ahead of you may be unfamiliar, but it is full of grace. It is filled with new beginnings, aligned connections, and paths that feel like home. But none of that could find you until you were brave enough to let go, brave enough to walk through the exit, brave enough to trust the unknown. And now here you are, stronger, wiser, freer. This is your beginning, not the end.